Hello everyone, welcome back to Theonopolis. So today we are actually building something new, since it's the 40th episode and I have something with single digit numbers, well, single digit and then a zero behind them. But for the first time in a long time I'm actually building a ride skin that is, when this episode goes live, well, I want to say when this episode goes live, this is going to be on the store, but yeah, it's already been on the store since Wednesday? Yeah, it's been on the store since Wednesday already. But anyways, for the ride skin, I wanted first to keep it a bit contained so that it would like fit in a smaller park. We all know what happens when I try to make something understated or compact. Yeah, that never works out. Completely never. But for the ride skin, I'm using the new Rising Raptor. I don't know the name again, but it's basically just 4 spinning wheels on something kind of similar to a drop tower, but it doesn't actually drop. I have actually never seen a ride like this before, which can either say much about how many theme parks I've been to, or just, yeah, it's probably saying much more about that. But anyway, the first idea for the ride skin was to actually make a working sundial. And that's why there are all the towers surrounding it with one large tower in the middle. It works with the ride and it works with the idea, but for some reason I just couldn't get it to work. Like, if I made it so that when at, let's say, 12 o'clock it would hit one tower, then at 3 o'clock it would of course hit the next tower, but then at 9 o'clock, or let's say 9 then 12 then 3, but 9 and 3 were on the same pillar, so I just couldn't get it to work. But since that's going to be most of it when it comes to, well, this part of building the ride skin, I want to quickly go into why do I find anniversary episodes so important. It's mostly got to do with me being a squirrel and being really easily distracted. For me, an anniversary episode is just like, I have made it. Or not I have made it, but I have made it so far without being distracted. And that's, for me, a very big achievement. Even though for most of you guys it probably won't be, but for me it is. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that part. But after the fountain, I really got into, well, mosaic building, or just making the ground look a little bit more pretty. And by this time I had already scrapped the idea of a sundial because I just couldn't get it to work. But I still want the ground to look pretty, so that's why I used pretty much, I think, 3 pieces. Well, not 3 pieces and as in the whole ground is 3 pieces, but 3 pieces as in the, I think most of it is from the adventure pack with the round thingy. But yeah, it's 3 pieces and pillars and later on flowers, because by the time I'm reaching now with building, I had already developed a completely different story for whatever the ride was going to be. And basically it ties in with Persephone, or the goddess of flowers, daughter of Demeter, and basically her story surrounding her abduction by Hades, god of the underworld, by which she became queen of the underworld. Yeah, even goddesses were not free from being, how do I say this in the most friendly way? Well, I'm not going to say it in a friendly way. She was basically abducted and somewhat forced to become Hades' wives. I said wives multiple. She was Hades' only wife. For what I know, the Greeks didn't practice polygamy or something like that, or, multiple marriages. So, but I wanted to get the abduction part of the story is a bit more, well, I wouldn't say overused, but it's just, for me, a bit too well known. I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit, just some other part in the story. And basically, even though it doesn't look like it, the ultimate name of the right skin is Persephone's Meadow, because she was abducted in, well, a meadow picking flowers. I mean, hence, well, I wouldn't say hence, but that's just part of, like, she's the goddess of flowers, so of course she is abducted while picking flowers. But yeah, her story with, the abduction by Hades basically was the Greeks' reasoning or mythological reasoning behind these seasons, because her mother Demeter was so sad by her abduction, and that, even most gods and goddesses couldn't get to Hades. Like, only a few gods, like Hermes, the travel, or the god of traveling and everything, could actually, go to the underworld. So yeah, basically Hades abducted Persephone in broad daylight, and her mother exactly knew where she was and couldn't do anything. So since Demeter is the goddess of harvest and everything, basically in her sorrow and anguish and grief because she couldn't help her daughter, she lets everything die and such, and so that became fall and winter. And later on, I mean, it's, I think, a bit more well-known story, or a bit better known part of the story is just Persephone was eventually allowed to go back to Demeter because humanity was starving because of eternal winter. But before she, was fully released from Hades, he gave her a pomegranate, and the amount of seeds she ate from that pomegranate was the amount of time she had to spend with Hades. So 6 months she was with her mother and everything is green and happy, and 6 months she's in the underworld and then everything dies. But yeah, I want to pick the part of the story where she is still in the meadow, like she's still, as it were, picking flowers, but Hades is sort of approaching, like he has noticed her. And it's weird to think about it, because in most stories Persephone is like the daughter of, if I'm being correct, Zeus and Demeter, which, if you know the Greek mythological family line, Demeter is Zeus' sister. So that happened. So since Hades is Demeter's and Zeus' brother, means that Persephone is his niece. And yeah, it's a weird story, but I mean, Grecian mythology and legend is full of these weird stories. But it's just a way of, like, explaining nature. Like, now we have science, but it is, well, I can see why they, used mythology to explain, well, basic nature things. I mean, I still am not really sure why Poseidon has earthquakes, but I mean, I got the comments that, oh yeah, most earthquakes were under the sea because of tectonic plates. I don't think the Greeks knew about the tectonic plates. But let's leave it at that. And before you already ask, I know this doesn't look like a meadow. It looks a bit like the love child between a shrine and some fantasy thing. but that's just because it's a ride skin. It's supposed to be a little bit grander and supposed to, you know, work with the ride. And well, basically every ride skin, you can't really have grass and everything. So I make up for that by using a lot of flowers. Like, I'm not going to build the entire, well, flower things on video, but there are a lot. So many, just to really bring home that she is the goddess of flowers. Like, later on, because she's married to Hades, she becomes the queen of the underworld, but here she is not, and so, or here she is not yet the queen of the underworld. So anything going into that is basically not in here. But yeah, it really has a bit of the look of like, for some reason, the idea of like a sacrificial shrine came into my head. I don't know why. It doesn't have anything of that. Maybe because of like the braziers at the side, which again are completely occupied by flowers and not by flames. Because flowers. But I did do all the rock work again off screen because that's kind of a boring part. I also, as I said, do most of like the flowery bits off screen. So the last thing I will show you of building this ride skin is the sort of temple-ish building or Stoa-like building in the queue. There are going to be more buildings, but you will see those later on. But for the queue temple-ish building, I wanted it to be somewhat simple, and of course when I try to build something simple, it's usually grander than when I don't try to build something simple. But I think it's later out turns out pretty good in my opinion. But then again, I'm the creator. Of course, if I don't like it, then I wouldn't be building it. So that's kind of like an empty. That's kind of like an empty statement. But for the rest of the ride skin, there is a shop or two included, and I actually made something that's completely inaccurate because I made a coffee shop and then I was like, I want the feeling of like, yeah, this is real fresh coffee. So I made it so that the coffee was actually being dried and roasted, well, at the shop. Then I researched it a bit, and coffee wasn't really discovered until I think the 15th century after Christ. So yeah, that shop is completely against everything. But then there's also a churro shop, and churros are, I don't know, like, please say this down below in the comments, but are churros Mexican or, you know, Latin American, or are they Spanish? Like, as in Spain, not as in like the whole Spanish world, because that's a huge chunk of the world. But for the rest of the ride skin, I have included some kind of cinematic overview of it, and it looks very different than whatever you have seen so far, because again, all the nature part is not included in building it. And well, I think it looks pretty good, and I don't know where to place it in Theonopolis actually. But I am going to leave you at that. I have also something different and special in the video, but I'm not going to say what it is. But drop your thoughts on that in the comments below, and I hope you have an amazing day. Hope to see you back in the next video if you like this video. And if I see you tomorrow, or tomorrow, actually Saturday, because this video is going up Sunday. But if I see you in the Efteling, I hope I'm not too much of a douchebag. Anyway, have a nice day and see ya!